Top of the morning, fight fans. This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Canelo Alvarez and Oscar Delahoya. Canelo Alvarez bombs on Oscar Delahoya and calls him a traitor. Wow. Boxing superstar Canelo Alvarez and Oscar Delahoya are continuing their war of words, with Alvarez bombing on Delahoya during a social media back and forth. Delahoya, who previously sponsored Alvarez as the owner of Golden Boy Promotions, responded to an Instagram video of Alvarez teaching a youngster. He criticized the WBA, the WBC, and the WBO champion and claims he ducked Charlo, as you guys can remember. And of course, we all know what he said. He said this guy does everything wrong. He throws hooks. He's on his heels. He flat-footed, Delahoya wrote. And, what else? He also avoids Twin Charlo. Canelo did not mince words in his response. Canelo told Delahoya where he can stick his comments, so to speak. He says, "Oh, really? You want me to talk? Fucking traitor." Wow. Canelo Alvarez said, "Do me a favor and go fuck yourself." Oh, wow. Alvarez and Delahoya have developed something of a contentious relationship after Alvarez is split from Golden Boy in November. The Mexican superstar previously signed an 11-year deal to exclusively fight on DAZN, but sought to be released from his contract when DAZN and Golden Boy failed to come up with an opponent for him. Delahoya admitted he took it personally when Alvarez requested you split. He says, "You never want to part ways this way. It literally hurts my feelings," Delahoya said in December. "I remember Bob Arum once telling me when I was younger, don't ever take it personal with a fighter. Don't ever take it personal." Obviously, he knows by experience, so I finally know what he's talking about. Let me counterpunch. This is getting very interesting. This seed has been planted, and what's growing is very, very nasty. You know what I mean? Whatever the product is, if it's a cactus, if it's a quince, if it's I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's bad. Delahoya and Canelo Alvarez. This happens a lot, Mike Tyson and Don King, with their fallings out. Bob Arum, of course, with all the people that he fell out with. And based on what I'm hearing from Oscar Delahoya, he mentions Bob Arum and it's like, never take it personally. Okay, well, obviously you didn't listen to your mentor, Bob Arum. He didn't listen that, hey, you don't take that personally. Okay. And honestly, I do remember through these segments of time where I remember Canelo used to really look up to Oscar Delahoya. I mean, not just as a promoter, but as a fighter. And I think he considered him a friend at some point. And he had to, if you guys heard that interview. If you guys seen that interview, Canelo Alvarez was the only person that stayed with Golden Boy, and all those other guys left to Al Heyman with Fox and PBC and Showtime. If you guys can remember, I'm talking about like Danny Garcia. I'm talking about all the Charlos. I'm talking about Deontay Wilder. All those guys went with Richard Schaefer on that side, okay? And Canelo Alvarez stayed because he's loyal, but I think it was a little bit more than loyalty. I think he did that because he actually liked Oscar Delahoya. Now, I think this is what happened with Delahoya. I think Delahoya, his inner demons kept knocking on his door and he kept opening those doors. And when he opened those doors, things came out some more about what he did on top of the stuff that already happened to him, which I won't show on this channel, but he had some obscene pictures that are floating around the internet. Okay. So he was able to get Canelo after that, because that was a very long time ago. but then more of these accusations and more of this evidence of pictures started popping up into the picture. And I think Canelo Alvarez at that point was like, you know what? I can't rock with you. Because at that time, Canelo Alvarez his popularity and his stardom was starting to rise, and he started to realize like, hey, maybe this isn't the best promotional company for me, right? Or maybe I should detach or kind of separate myself from him on a personal level, because personally, I don't like what he's doing. You see what I mean? Because, I mean, he had another scandal that popped up with another female and him doing some obscene, weird stuff, right? That's his life. But Canelo Alvarez, I think at that point, started separating himself personally from him. Then you hear Canelo started saying things like, it's just a business relationship. You know what I mean? You didn't see them hanging out together in the front row of anything, watching fights and stuff like they used to. You stop seeing that type of stuff go down, right? And then Delahoya lands that DAZN deal, because Eddie Hearn brought the idea of DAZN to the shores of America, right? And then Delahoya capitalized on it since he had Canelo and he was the cash cow, which he still is the cash cow, but he knew he had him and he was like, well, let's jump on this idea. Okay, and they jumped on that idea, but they still had that business relationship. But then once Canelo Alvarez felt that he was betrayed, that was over too. You know what I mean? Because, because I'm thinking like Canelo was like, you know what? I already don't like the dude personally because he's done some stuff that's weird. But now he's messing with my money. And now this is business. Okay. So the personal relationship already, dissolved itself. But now the business one is also going in that same direction. For that reason, he Shark Tanked him. I'm out. Right? So after that, there was nothing, but it wasn't like an hey, all of a sudden Canelo Alvarez don't deal with Delahoya. These things happen from this thing to that thing to that thing. Now, see, and when he left, I think Delahoya's main thing is also, it's not necessarily that Canelo left him. It's where Canelo went. Okay. See, Canelo went to the guy that was the competitor promoter of Delahoya. Because see, Delahoya and Eddie Hearn has had words, where Eddie has mentioned things concerning his fighter. In fact, he said things about Canelo, and Delahoya was like, worry about your own fighters, Eddie. Right? So those are the things that happen with those guys, and you could tell the jealousy from that. You know what I'm saying? Because he was afraid of what could happen, and what happened, right? Canelo ended up going with Eddie Hearn, the guy that he's fought and beat up most of his fighters. Matter of fact, all of them, right? But they did business together, and what Canelo witnessed was, okay, this is a cool guy. He doesn't have any shaky, weird stuff. That's called integrity, okay? If you can keep your business out of the main headlines, you're winning. Especially when people you are under a microscope when it comes to everything, meaning business, meaning personal, meaning like you can't see Eddie Hearn getting like shit faced at Mandalay Bay. Somebody's gonna see something and say something. You know what I'm saying? So so Canelo observed that. He observed that all the way through. So since he went with him, because if you guys can remember, Delahoya was like, we'll work together again. I'm quite sure we'll work with Canelo, because he wasn't sure what type of relationship. He was like, oh, 2 fights, that's just a year. So maybe Canelo will come back. But then since Oscar De La Hoya has heard, hey, no, Canelo's going to go and continue working with Eddie Hearn, I think that's what kind of, made him the way he is. That made him blow up. That's what got him very livid. That's why he's saying things like, oh, he's flat-footed and on his tippy toes and stuff like that, on his heels. How did he explain it? Let me see. Let me get it right. What did De La Hoya say? Yeah. He throws hooks on his heels, flat-footed, Delahoya wrote. Then he avoids Twin Charlo. And then really, you guys know he's already putting himself under the bus because he was the promoter at the time. You know what I mean? He's the engine behind making the fights, not Canelo. So for him saying, hey, you ducked Charlo, well, you had to help him duck Charlo. But on top of that, though, honestly, I think Delahoya is very hurt behind that. And he did not follow what his mentor, Bob Arum, has taught him. However, here's the irony of Bob Arum. Bob Arum hasn't learned that too. So Bob Arum should practice what he preaches, because when someone leaves him, he's just as butthurt about it as well. So he can't say anything about Delahoya. Okay, so why are you teaching Delahoya something that you're not practicing, being a promoter? Why can't you fight? Why can't you deal with Mikey Garcia? Because you screwed him over. Why did it take 6-7 years for Manny Pacquiao to fight Delahoya? I mean, to fight Floyd Mayweather, because of how he personally felt about Floyd, and how Floyd personally felt about him. But still, those type of things deal with person, like never take it personally. Well, it's all business. Okay, well, in that case, if it's a business relationship you need, you shouldn't worry about what happened personally, or take it personally what happened on a business aspect, like he's been doing with his fighters. So anyway, this is getting very interesting, and Delahoya is planning to make a comeback, and he's talking about fighting Charlo and all these guys. How about this? Fight Canelo. I may go live and talk about it. I'm going to go live today in a couple hours. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo Alvarez, their beef. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.